Welcome to FitBody Lifestyle, the show where we dive deep into the world of fitness, health, business, relationships, and the art of living a balanced life. I'm Jamie.
And I'm Greg, and we're here to give you the benefit of our experiences in the fitness and bodybuilding industry, the corporate world, running a business, personal development, and building healthy relationships.
Whether you're sweating it out in the gym, hustling in your business, or seeking balance in your everyday life, you're in the right place.
So lace up those sneakers and grab that water bottle, and let's get ready to transform our minds, our bodies, and our lives. Hello, FitBody Lifers, and welcome to another episode of FitBody Lifestyle. This is actually part two of our episode with Dr. Dove. And of course, I am here with my love of my life, Jamie D, Mama Bear. And we are joined by our special guest visitor, Dr. Dove Putterman, from Canada. So we will
he thinks
watch
all Canadians can speak French, so that's why
I failed French. We discussed this. I do really well.
I didn't think all Canadians could speak French.
We keep speaking French.
Do I?
Yeah,
only
only
in
Quebec.
French. Okay.
Well, no, not everybody in Quebec speaks English.
It's true.
I think
A lot don't.
Yeah,
We have athletes on our team that don't speak.
Well, in military, it's not Quebec, it's Quebec. So, okay.
Yeah, I've heard of
I'm
that.
just kidding. It was not.
Who says Quebec?
Quebec, I don't know. Who knows?
Maybe people-
This and other things. But
No, that's a real thing.
Let's get to business. The business of business. So we're very excited to have Dr. Dove here because today, and we teased this in the first episode, we're going to talk about overcoming
Or in
those-
last week's episode.
That's right, about low pressure fitness, overcoming some challenges with core work and being able to really deliver that best physique on stage, which really, and it's not just your best physique on stage, I would say, learning low pressure fitness and the ability to tap in and mind muscle control your core is something that plays, and it's so funny, I must have said this about 40 times over the last couple of weeks, is that this is not just about what shows up on the stage. This is about what shows up in your workouts. It starts with your workouts. It starts with the conditioning there, learning how to brace that core and bring in the ribs, the TVAs, transverse obliques, or transverse abdominals, being able to learn to control that is such a key component of effective and efficient workouts. And it shows up on stage, and it brings your core in, and it produces that nice little waist. So they're all related. This isn't just about low pressure fitness for stage. It's about low pressure fitness in your entire fitness regime. Would you agree with that?
100%. I
Okay.
always say if you take this and apply it to your entire day, you are going to get such good results. But if you only do this for 10 minutes in the morning,
Then that's what
you're
you're going to get.
10 minutes of
Yeah,
results.
that's what you're going to get. It's like, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I want to back up because I know we kind of cut off part of this conversation because we wanted to bring it back on here.
Yes.
So, because you were talking, I'd like to go back to that, your
Yeah.
experience, because we didn't get to finish that. And
Yes.
I really
But
am.
before we do that,
Yes.
just
Check
as
in
a
word.
reminder, check in word.
So I was actually going to bring it up because I thought of this one because it's for Greg.
Okay.
Focused.
Focus. All right. I like that. Okay. Thank
like
you.
that.
I like that focus. Okay.
I don't know if I'm going to stick to it, but right now that's my intention.
All right.
For this podcast.
I love that intention.
We're going to focus.
And just in case everybody missed the first episode, Dr. Dove is a entrepreneur. She's a
You have how many dental
surgeon. 13 offices so far.
I've opened 13 offices. I've sold 11 of them.
And
Wow.
they're pediatric
Still
dental
opening.
offices. Yes.
Nope. A lot of them were GP, general, orthodontics, pediatrics.
Runs the whole gamut. Yes.
She is a wife, a mother of 5, including 3 triplets. And if you did not
One set
hear
of
the
three
story,
triplets.
3 triplets.
triplets.
That's 9. I don't know about
I
that.
don't even know why. I'm having a mental block here.
4 boys, 1 girl.
5 children, 3 of whom are triplets.
Yes.
And she is an IFBB wellness pro.
Yes.
She's a natural athlete, and she is just an outstanding individual
Thank you.
all across the board. So low pressure fitness coach, which is kind of what we're going to talk about today or in this episode.
Right.
So
and if you didn't listen to last week's episode, then
Go back
and take a look at that. But there's a lot of learning I feel like people can apply
For sure.
for the things that we're going to talk. And you're making a huge difference in our athletes'
so.
performances and both like Greg says, off the stage and on the stage. So, but let's go back to your experience because really what kicked this off was your pregnancy, right?
Right. So I said in the last episode, I was over 200 pounds, pregnant with triplets at barely 5'1". And after delivery, I had a huge hernia. After delivering them, I had surgery, like a tummy tuck, to remove the skin, close the diastases, repair the hernia, which left me with no belly button because it was so, like, that's just to tell the listeners out there how severe this situation was. And, even though, sure, my stomach, the skin was a lot tighter, I was walking around with this blown out tummy. And about a year after that procedure, even though, I was fit in other ways, I went to the nail salon, and God bless this woman, she's been doing my nails forever. She asked me if I was expecting again.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's because I was sitting there and I had lost so much connection with my core. Not to mention, I still don't have like sensory feeling, kind of like low here.
The nerve damage,
The
right?
nerve damage, yeah. Scar tissue and all that. But I was going around with really bad posture. I had a lot of back problems. I was in a wheelchair. I was saying in the last episode when I was pregnant with triplets, because I literally could not walk from the house to the car to get to my OB appointments. And I couldn't sit in the car. I was like laying down. My back was just shot after that pregnancy. And pelvic floor. I had incontinence. I couldn't, sneeze, couldn't control, and didn't know how to manage the pressure that I was feeling a lot of heaviness. And it's interesting because a lot of the athletes I always do the first sessions always an hour because I like to get to know and develop a rapport with the athletes. And it's crazy how many athletes I meet who are even not moms or just have one or two singletons, struggle with pelvic floor issues and doing a leg press and having some urine leakage, and they're embarrassed to say it, but I always tell my story. I'm like, you can share this with me because that's going to be our point to improve from. So it is really common, and I hope anybody listening to this.
It's actually common, not, even with women that aren't moms. Like, even as we get older,
right, for hormonal reasons and stuff
there's
like that,
a lot
your
of
pelvic
reasons.
floor can get weaker. So again, after she made that comment, I was like, okay, what's going on with my stomach? It was like always just, like pushed out, and it wasn't fat. It was just, I've always been like somewhat lean here. I gained all my fat in my legs, my glutes, but it was just kind of always like a balloon. And so I, researched, and I found just like abdominal vacuuming. And so I tried like watching YouTubes and tried it myself. And then I connected with like a local coach in Toronto. She was like, okay. And kind of taught me not like LPF, but just, how to vacuum. And I saw some improvement. And then when I decided to start competing, I really saw how much I bulged out. I had like absolutely no control of it. Like, it was awful, like some of the like girls that I see now, even that you send me, it's like nowhere near how bad I was. It's like so easy to fix if they just do a little bit of work. But that's when I found Karina Anji, who is my LPF coach, and I've been working with her for several years now. And she introduced me to the world of LPF, which is not just, hypopressives. We call it hypopressive because it's hypo, lower pressive pressure. We're working in a low pressure environment. We're lifting, creating less pressure in the abdomen, the thorax, the pelvis floor. But she taught me about LPF, which takes all of that and adds posture and breath work and breathing in the posture, maintaining your posture throughout the day. So even when you're sitting, not allowing this to be a high pressure environment, you have to always think of lifting everything. We were working with an athlete yesterday. One of the cues I gave her was, as you walk, I want you to lift your pelvic floor. And that sounds so crazy because how can you lift your pelvic floor, But if you are practicing LPF, you know that feeling, that decompressed state. And that's what flattens the stomach out. You can be 1% body fat and still have
a belly. Yeah.
A belly. Mm-hmm. Right? So
we see this a lot on stage.
Yes.
I mean, and I see a lot of feedback being given to athletes. You got to control, and I see it a lot with the masters athletes because, like what we're talking about, whether or not they've had kids in the past and then they never, learned how to properly control that, or they could just be going through menopause premenopause, menopausal
Yes.
changes where that is getting weaker down there, and
Yes.
they're just, no matter what they do, they're just not able to control it. So
Correct.
I think this is something that affects a lot of people.
A lot of people, and it's even guys. And you can think of also, like, just not the core, but going back to like the incontinence thing. Like, think about like powerlifters.
Yeah.
Some of these powerlifters are like 23. They should not have prolapse symptoms. And we'll talk about this when we talk about lifting belts and all of that, and lifting heavy like that. And it's really unnatural. Their bodies weren't made to do that. And so pairing it with something like LPF to manage the pressure. You're creating so much pressure in the gym, and you're not managing it outside of the gym, or learning how to create less pressure throughout the day. It's this constant pushing out of your belly. But with athletes, what I see really disorganized breathing. That's what I would call it. And I think that's why in transitions, we see it more, because think about it, when you're on stage standing there, sure, it's tough, but you're not moving. So it's really, a lot easier to keep your breath. But all of a sudden the judge says, for me, quarter turn.
Yeah.
And you have to move. Well, now what? Now we're talking about mobility. How well can you keep that breath up here, thoracic, while twisting or making or stepping or whatever you're doing. And what happens is a lot of people think they lose it in the exhale, but they actually lose it in the inhale. So I think in their mind, when the judge says turn, they almost feel like they have a second to just inhale and pause and rest.
Right.
And that's where the belly comes out.
So it's funny you say that. We were giving feedback to an athlete yesterday, and she's in off season, so I don't expect the core to be, we're cinched at this point. But the feedback is that I really want you to work on holding that core, especially through your transitions. When she sets in the pose, it's perfect.
No problem. Yeah.
When she's and this is basically what you're talking about, is during the transition where most people lose it, most people lose it. And I think there's a couple of things. One is the breathing, I think, is part of it. The other thing is just, and you and I think we had this conversation. When you think about, it's one thing to practice in the camera. It's one thing to send in your check-ins. It's another thing when you're on stage with the lights and the judges telling you which direction to turn,
have a lot
right?
of food in your belly as well.
And when you count the amount of time that you're actually on stage versus everything else, it doesn't balance. It's an infinitesimally small comparison. Like, I don't know how many minutes are in a year, but several thousand minutes in a year. When you think of the percentage of those that is actually on stage, it's maybe 1%. Even if you do 5 or 6 shows a year. So it's getting into that habit of, and I love what you said, Dove, about you've got to be, this is a 24/7 thing. I mean, not obviously when you sleep, but it's something that, and we
Sleep's
talk.
part of bodybuilding.
It is.
Part of recovery.
But that core awareness, that the creating the less pressure, low pressure is walking around. It's doing the dishes. It's walking between. We had a nurse, one of our athletes, and we talked about it's when you're in the OR and you're standing there. It's creating that core awareness when you're there.
Always, yes.
And that is, I think, the hard part for people to embrace, is that, and you build that in the off season because it's the habit. Because when you're getting that quarter turn to your right, if your mind is going into, which is normal, how do I position my feet? How do I position my hips?
How do I make my glute pop?
How do I make my glute pop? And in
Right.
your division, right? For other divisions, it's similar things. If those are your primary thoughts, then what are you not thinking of? Which is your core. And we're wanting to train that first thing is tighten my core, then worry about everything else, so that as you transition, when you hit the pose, it's like what we talk about, the walk to the back for bikini and wellness. If you have to reset the glutes after you take that last step, then you've let them drop. So it's these mental cues to get you in line with doing this 24/7.
100%. And I also think it's like the athletes that I meet with, it's also the way that they practice and the way that they check in. And they're really only concerned about what does my front pose look like? What does my back pose look like, or wellness? What does this quarter look like? And nobody really thinks of that moment of transition. they'll think of like they'll.
I would say coaches do a lot.
So and that's where the judges will
Yep.
catch you. And if you're close with somebody else, they need to find something, right? And that's a really easy one. There's core control.
Yeah.
So
So
well, the eyes go to the waist first.
yes,
The eyes,
it's very distracting
it's
when you
natural.
see the core.
Right. It's
Yeah.
natural for the judges. Myself when I'm watching, I'm looking at the midsection going up, then down, or down the nerve. But I mean,
Right.
it's kind of like your focal point is in the center. So that you're right. As
Yes.
soon as you see that, let go. And then one other thing you mentioned the disorganized breathing, and I know we're going to talk a little bit about this, but
sure.
the heart's also racing
Yeah.
when you're on stage. So if you've already practiced it that way, it's going to be even worse probably once you get on stage.
Correct.
Because you cannot create stage jitters in practice. It's funny what you've been with us at check-ins at shows, and so we put the lights up and the
Yes.
and the bar. And whenever we're there, I know a lot of people say, "Oh, I'm so nervous. I'm so nervous."
Wow, I get
It's like
nervous.
good,
Yeah, we're like,
good.
good,
I'm
yes.
glad
We
you are
say,
because
yeah,
that's
this
what
is the time.
that is as close as I can get to stage. Is if you are nervous with this thing, because when you're doing your check-in videos, I guarantee you there's no nervousness there.
You're gonna
No.
take a new one if you
No.
don't
Alone
like
in
it.
your living room and nobody's
Yeah.
watching.
Yeah, you got your
Except your
music
dog.
playing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
20 takes and send the best one to
20,
your coach.
20 takes, then you screenshot and
Yeah,
you
which is
watch
the
the
best
video,
one, yeah.
pause, go back, like millisecond, take another picture, then you slide the pictures back and forth.
I hate that. I hate that. Hey, so let me level set with one thing here, which is how do we differentiate low pressure fitness from vacuuming from core work?
Okay, I love that question. So low pressure fitness, like I was saying before, it is essentially we're doing vacuums. So vacuums have been around forever. Like Arnold's Encyclopedia of Modern Bodybuilding,
Yep.
you talked about the abdominal vacuum. When was that? Like 1970-ish?
Oh God, I have that book on my bookshelf.
Okay, well,
and
check. I
I've
think it's
had it
around
there
the
since I
1970s.
literally had it there since I was 15 years old, or not 15 years old. I was 18 years old when I
Yeah.
had it. Yeah,
That's why you're so
which
ripped.
ages me. But
I was going to say, are we going to tell your age so that people could do the math? Go ahead.
But even before that, in yoga texts and all that, it always existed. They just called different things. And LPF started by a therapist named Tamara Rael, and I think in Brazil, and that's why it's so big in Brazil. And she incorporates a lot of postures, and changing your posture both during a vacuum, between vacuums, and she also instead of the vacuum is such a small part. It's just what's a vacuum? We're exhaling all the air. We're doing a false inhalation, to open the rib cage, lift everything up. Mind you, a lot of people are doing it wrong. They watch YouTube. They suck their belly button to their spine. That creates more of a contraction than a true vacuum. But basically, LPF just incorporates a lot of other things and really teaches you how to manage your core throughout the day. So as it's divided into 3 levels. I don't teach it, every level has different poses. As you get into the higher levels, we're doing things with transitions. I don't teach it in order, all the level 1 poses, all the level 2 poses. I teach it based on the athletes. So, if I get an athlete that is really struggling with transitions, keeping their core engaged, we'll do more rotational. Sometimes I'll get an athlete with a scoliosis, so I'll do more unilateral things. So LPF gives us those options, okay? And it allows us to vacuum, learning how to vacuum with elongation. So a lot of the old texts will have people vacuuming with almost like a hunch, okay? And we still do that in LPF. We have some poses where we're completely in like a spinal flexion, but everything is about opposing forces. So having your spine elongate this way, having your legs everything's, opposing forces in any posture. So it's interesting. It's got a lot of more aspects to it than just vacuuming. Bracing in the gym. So I want to differentiate first. In LPF, we are training our transverse muscle. This is our deep, deep core muscle. The fibers of this muscle run this way. This is the core set of our waist, okay? So we want to look on stage like we are wearing waist trainers, but we cannot wear waist trainers. So we have a waist trainer in our body, and that's the transverse muscle, and that is what we are predominantly targeting. When you're bracing in the gym, you are using your rectus abdominis. You're using the outside, your 6-pack muscle, what we see, and a little bit of transverse as well. But what you're doing is you're doing the opposite of what low pressure fitness, what a vacuum does. A vacuum lifts the pressure. When you're bracing, you're actually increasing pressure. Okay. So
Like the Valsalva maneuver.
exactly, you're doing a Valsalva. So these are both ways to stabilize the spine. But the way I look at it is bracing in the gym, it's like, how would I explain? Like driving really fast and hitting the brakes. You know, it's when you really need to lift something heavy and you need a lot of, it creates like a cylinder around your spine to really brace, like that's for really heavy. But when you're standing there on stage, you don't want to brace. You want to lower the pressure. You don't want to be braced like this, like you are in the gym. You want to be engaged, and you want that to be coming from your transverse, because when the transverse is active, your spine is stabilized, your posture is beautiful, your stomach is in, and
Creating that beautiful
you're-
tiny waistline.
Exactly. And you're focused on that breathing. And going back to what you said quickly, Greg, in case I forget to say it, is part of LPF is the focus on the exhale, which when we talk about being nervous on stage, I always tell the athletes, work your exhales, especially if you've been doing LPF for a while, because your stomach will never pop on an exhale. When you exhale, your rib cage goes closed, right? A lot of physique competitors will like exhale and close the rib cage.
Some martial arts in there, right?
Right?
But
don't brace.
Right,
So-
but the exhale in yoga and the exhale, and I'm not an expert, so I'm asking this more as a question, but the exhale in yoga, the exhale in martial arts is the release of tension versus the inhale is the accumulation of that tension.
Correct. Yes.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So exhales, they really get the parasympathetic nervous system active. So rest and digest. Okay. So the more that we focus on those exhales, the more we calm down our nervous system, the more we ignite our digestion. You know, we just start relaxing, and that's something I see in a lot of competitors. Is it's difficult to get them to that stage because we are always in fight or flight. When you're in the gym, that is highly sympathetic. That is, you're running away from a tiger, fight or flight. You know, blood pressure is higher, and you know, that's why some people ask me, well, after I do these heavy lifts and I'm creating all this tension, should I put the weight down and do a vacuum? You can try, but you're not going to get a good vacuum because you are so in that sympathetic state.
You just can't transition that
You're
quickly.
nervous that your CNS is lit up
Yes,
at that point.
and I'm not
Yeah.
against. So what we're doing in the gym is we're creating a hyper-pressive environment, a high-pressure environment. When we're sitting here, this is like normal pressure. So I'm not against everything hyper-pressive. You know, like I train hard
There's a
and
time
heavy,
and place.
but I do just as much, or try to do just as much hyper-pressive LPF work to help counteract that and help balance that, because this is all just about balance and, you know, being able to reconnect with your core and where it should be and where all the viscera should be sitting. So, you know, with low pressure fitness, with vacuums, where we're lifting the pelvic floor, we're almost rearranging the viscera in our abdomen to sit a little bit higher where they should be. Whereas in the gym, when we're bracing hard and, you know, squatting, and again, you know, going back talking about prolapse and all that, what happens? We're pushing everything down. So we are creating so much pressure and everything gets pushed down. And that's why we see weakness. What happens? What's the point of least resistance, right?
Yeah,
Or pelvic floor.
one of the interesting things I found with, you know, some of my ladies that do struggle a bit with this is they don't feel it.
They can't feel it.
They don't know. They don't know they're doing it. They can't connect with the fact that they're not holding it.
Yes.
You know, they'll get off stage and then they'll see their pictures and videos and like, what?
Yes.
I was holding it.
So I think a lot of people, and this is such a difficult habit to break for a lot of athletes, is they suck it in. So they're constantly sucking it in, but like sucking it in and pushing it out is it's the same dysfunction, right? It's just, you're still sucking in is still like a brace. You know, we don't want to like work our six pack. We want to lift.
So there shouldn't be
activate.
tension is what you're saying, whether it be sucking it in or bracing.
Yes, and
it's-
how Exactly. And how difficult is it to suck in? And you know, something I know that just drives you insane with athletes is the vacuum in the poses.
Yes.
And you see that a lot because what are they doing? They're sucking it in. They're putting themselves in this like permanent inhalation phase. You know, like what happens when you inhale? The rib cage expands and thrusts, right? The diaphragm flattens to keep that rib cage nice and open. Diaphragm flattens, pressure, we increase pressure. That's why inhales are more sympathetic, you know? And then as you exhale, diaphragm comes up, rib cage closes, pressure is relieved. That's why we calm. And so, you know, working on those exhales. But if you're constantly trying to suck it in and be in this like forever inhaled rib cage open position, where is your breath? It's up here? You know, like, I don't know. I know that's like an old way of teaching competitors, and a lot of competitors that have been doing this for a long time, they've gotten really good at that, especially the high level, the Olympians, they're really good at it. But it's not easy for them.
Well,
it's very difficult.
and it's also not an ideal look. Like, I feel like there's some people that can get away with vacuuming based on their structure.
Exactly.
Like, say they have a little bit smaller rib cage, maybe it doesn't look as bad, and it can give, or, you know, may even give like a more slender look to the waist. But a lot of people that have a little bit bigger rib cage, once they do that, they start to get this barrel chest, and that's not really the look we're going for. And in reality, like, for whether this small rib cage or big rib cage, when you can create this low pressure that you're talking about, it's going to look better.
Right.
I mean, like you're saying, like, some people can get away with it. It's much harder. It doesn't look as good, but depending on how that physique is built, maybe that still is working
100%.
for them. But if they
you're
could learn a
starting
better
out and
way,
you can learn this way, it's going to be so much better. Because not only that, you know, we're learning about making ourselves taller. We're learning about growing through the top of our head. We're learning about elongating. And all of that relieves pressure. All of that engages your transverse. We don't want, when we're doing crunches in the gym, that is all rectus. That is all like the six pack. Okay. And we can talk a little bit about that and exercises in the gym. But when you're on stage, you don't want to feel that. You don't want to feel braced. You want to feel active. And you find that connection again through vacuum practice, through proper vacuum practice.
so you're doing the practice, and then when you're getting on stage, you're no longer vacuuming. So I think that's
and that's the thing. Yes. And I always tell the athletes, and this is actually something I notice a lot when I start working with an athlete who says, I've been vacuuming a lot and I do this every day. And I say, okay, let's see what you're doing, because that's how I know how we can improve. It's not a test. Just, you don't have to say anything to me. And so they'll do a vacuum, and then they hold it and they start to breathe. They start to do little breaths. And then they turn to me and they say, and then I try to breathe, but I don't know how long I should. And I say, well, hold on a sec. Why are you trying to breathe? Well, you know, because on stage,
they think they need to hold that.
This has nothing to do with stage. We are here to train your transverse. We are here to train the core set of your body so that, you know, sure, you can look better on stage. The same way you go into the gym and train your glutes. Do you do, you know, your squat thinking about your back pose and do a big lumbar? Or like, no, this has nothing to do with posing or your core on stage. This is LPF. This is your session. We are training your transverse today. When you breathe in a vacuum, you are no longer in a vacuum. You're breathing. A vacuum is
by pure
void.
definition. Once you're breathing, you're not vacuuming.
Once you breathe, the vacuum is broken. So the point, and I do for athletes, once they're getting closer, if they're still struggling with that core control, to help them feel it, is I will have them lie down and do a vacuum, because that's where they're comfortable. And then what we'll do is after the vacuum, I will say you have to inhale. That's another thing I see with girls that or guys that have been vacuuming for a long time. They do a vacuum, it's quite deep, but then they go and they let it go. Well, how can you exhale at the top of the vacuum if you have to exhale all the air before? So if you can just let that vacuum go and exhale, you didn't exhale all the air. So you still have some air left in there, which isn't necessarily bad. You still trained your transverse, but I always think of the vacuum as like the top set for that muscle. It's like the most contraction we can get for that muscle. And the biggest contraction we can get is if we get rid of all, fully exhale. The lungs have to be as empty as possible. You can leave like a little bit of reserve. It's hard to exhale that.
I did it yesterday.
I just want to say this. Jamie has a phenomenal vacuum. I was like, whoa. We were almost going to do...
She tested me yesterday.
Yeah, we were almost going to do like, I'll teach Jamie how to vacuum on the podcast. And then I was like, well, let's just see your vacuum. And I'm like, we're going to skip that. You already know what you're doing. Yeah. So you've got it down. But,
But I did have room to still exhale a bit more. And
yes.
I also have not been practicing, which
it
is
was
like...
still really deep though. Yeah. But yeah, so we exhale everything. So, if you think of going back to that diaphragm, so now exhale everything. So the diaphragm is lifted, rib cage is closed. And now with no air, we are now using that transverse because there's no air coming in to inhale. So we're using that transverse muscle, which connects to the rib cage, to open the ribs. And I just want to also clear up a quick misconception is that vacuuming is going to give you a flared rib cage. It absolutely will not. If you look at the attachments, origins and insertions of the attachment of that muscle, its function is to bring the rib cage in. And I know that because I've said this to you, I will forever have somewhat of a flared rib cage because I carry triplets. And, that's a lot of times where rib cages can be flared from birth, but also from pregnancy.
And some people just anatomically.
Yes.
I mean, that...
I only know because I didn't before, but it's just,
Right.
And it's something that
everybody's body's a little different.
100%, but it's something that I've worked on so much for myself and keep working on. And I brought it in so much with LPF. Mm-hmm. So, I always say, rest assured, even though I am giving you that cue to open your rib cage in the vacuum, when we strengthen that muscle, its job is going to be to bring that rib cage closed.
Yeah,
so,
we've referred some people to you that have the flared rib, but we also referred to some people that, well, what did you call this? The rib thrust.
Yes.
Which is the upper rib cage, the crossover part, if you will.
So a flare comes from the lower ribs being just like protruding out more. So it's kind of like, your rib cage is, instead of being like a triangle like this, it's kind of like this. And then a thrust is actually, it's more postural. So they're actually bringing their rib cage out like this and thrusting.
Interested in changing your life or stepping on stage? Join FitBody Fusion today.
Experience the FitBody Fusion difference with tools, knowledge, and community support to reach your healthy and sustainable lifestyle.
We guide thousands on their fitness journeys, from seasoned athletes to those who are simply seeking a healthier life.
Our expert coaches provide personalized plans and unwavering support, empowering you to thrive.
FitBody Fusion is more than just training. It's a community. We understand the challenges of solo fitness journeys, which is why we foster a supportive environment where members encourage and motivate each other.
Join the FitBody Fusion community today and unlock your full potential.
Head to fitbodyfusion.com to sign up for a free consultation.
And do it today.
So like almost like arching in their
and
lumbar spine.
Yes.
More thoracic.
Thoracic, yes.
Sorry. And then pushing that rib cage forward, because I know some people are listening and aren't seeing like how we're kind of like...
Right. So
if you go to YouTube or Spotify
100%,
and look at what we're doing.
Ask ChatGPT. It knows all the answers.
No, don't, please.
No, we're not a fan of ChatGPT. Don't ask ChatGPT.
It's fine. But,
is
double
it coaching now too? ChatGPT, is that what's happening?
It's so funny.
It's doing everything.
Like as a coach, when I have athletes, they're like, well, chat says, and I'm like, okay. But anyway, it's a great tool. You just have to understand it's also...
Don't be a doctor of ChatGPT.
Yes.
Like the doctor of Google.
Well, chat should be the opportunity for you to ask more questions. It should not be the opportunity for you to get more answers. And sometimes it can be a great opportunity for critical thinking if you use it that way. If you use it as the outlet of your thoughts, less effective.
Yeah, everything's tools.
Ruins creative thinking too, I think.
But I love that you're explaining this, and as you're explaining it, it just makes me think about, when we have Drew in here and he's talking about training and how people will take that pelvic tilt that we're doing in posing and then translate that into the gym. That's not into
LPF, which is
the same idea.
And we, I could talk about LPF forever, but we stress having ribs over pelvis. We talk about the buckets. Remember I sent you that image?
Yep.
The bucket, if I had a bucket on my rib cage here that's pointing down, spilling water into the bucket that's on my pelvis, the pelvic bucket has to catch all that water, so if I'm tilted anyway.
So if you're not stacked.
When you're interior tilt, then the low bucket is tilted forward.
Just the low
And so
bucket.
the water's got no place to go.
Well, and then the water has to, like, we want to get such a tilt in that low bucket that the water actually misses that bucket completely, but it is still going directly down. And so I think that a lot of athletes, and I do believe a lot of it I think breathing is kind of central to so much of this. And it comes from a compensation to get more air in while they're posing, inability, again, disorganized breathing, not really knowing what to do, trying to suck in, and they do this. So if you think of a pelvic thrust, if you were on the side, I'd be out like this. Whereas if you think of not pelvic thrust, a rib cage
flare.
thrust. Whereas you think rib flare, you would see it from the front, and a thrust you really see from the side. And in the side post, you see those are the people that rib really sticks out in the front there. So that
Doug,
is sometimes just fixed with posture and posing cues, and again, retraining the breathing and diaphragm release. That's another thing that I should say with LPF that's so important is we get every muscle in our body released, worked on. You go to the RMT, shoulders, traps, glutes, whatever. Nobody releases their diaphragm. Whereas like in a place like Brazil, these girls are getting massage therapy in every session. Their diaphragm is getting released. It's so common practice there. North America, I don't know about you guys, but in Canada, like I'll go see an RMT and say, hey, can we do a diaphragm release? They look at me like I have four eyes.
Yes, no,
Like,
that is not common.
It's not common. And it's so crazy because to me, as a competitor, this is the most important muscle in my body. This is what's regulating my breath throughout the day. And if it's stuck, especially, we see that with girls that are wearing waist trainers or all these compressive garments, if the diaphragm can't move freely, you can't control your breath. And on stage, and also think of mobility. You've got to twist and still keep the breath up here.
Right.
If your diaphragm is stuck and doesn't have the ability to do this easily, it's really hard to keep the breath where it should be while you're rotating. So a big thing for those athletes is also diaphragm release. And the beautiful thing about diaphragm release is you could do it yourself.
I was about to ask you that. Since that isn't something that's common with finding it in a practitioner, then what do you recommend?
There are some that do it, but so there's different methods, and we always start every LPF session with a diaphragm release. I will say, I don't think I've had one athlete that I've met with who has not started, like when we've done the diaphragm release, has not said, ouch, because they're so tight. So
like any other muscle in the body, right?
Any other muscle. Well, think about how much you're using this muscle, right? And then then on top of that, what you're doing in the gym, that makes your diaphragm tight because of that bracing action. So what I teach is getting your fingertips, and the diaphragm sits under the rib cage. Okay, so just doing here is not sufficient.
What Dove is doing, if you can't see this, is she's tracing down.
Come and watch.
Well, you could do that, and not everybody can. So if you just basically start where your xiphoid process is, which is the middle of your ribs, and then trace down to where you can get right underneath that, you'll feel this before your ribs start to go down.
Trace your ribs, yes, and then trace your ribs.
There's like a ridge
take
there.
Your fingers and really get them under your rib cage. So if you are watching and you can see this, my fingers are right under that rib cage. Okay, and then you can.
We're all doing it.
You're all doing it, and then you can hold them there. And take some inhales and exhales, and see on the inhale especially, if you can keep your fingers deep. Don't allow them to pop out.
How much pressure would you say you're putting?
As much as a massage therapist would put on it.
Probably more than you're comfortable. Probably more than what you think is a lot, and then a little bit more.
Put a lot. And now, if you're feeling tight and sore, you're not going to want to put that much. But the most common way to tell somebody's tight is what happens is they inhale, fingers pop out. Mm-hmm. And so, if you watch, like I release my diaphragm every day, but I can inhale and keep those
yours aren't moving at all.
Fingers in. So releasing that diaphragm, again, that also helps with like that rib flare, bringing that rib cage in, because the diaphragm in an exhale needs to be able to ascend up into that rib cage. So if it can dome up a lot more, you are going to bring that rib cage in.
Which is probably counterintuitive for people, because you think about, when you're describing it,
Yes.
Not if somebody's not
Oh, you're
understanding the
thinking
anatomy,
inhale, that-
if it's going up, is it going to expand? But it's actually the opposite. As it's coming up and in, it's actually allowing the ribs to collapse.
Exactly. And that's why I always say, like, focus on those exhales on stage. You don't want to do a big inhale. You don't want to inhale and I say, like, take all the world's air in, just enough inhale to just keep you alive.
Well, you'll hear the
Just keep you alive.
You'll hear the male bodybuilders, and a lot of them have the snake thing.
That's what I was saying.
Where they are pushing that air out
Yes.
to bring in their waist.
Yes.
Yeah. Hey, Dove. So, I want to. I don't want to get too far off that, but I do want to ask this question.
Yes.
So you mentioned dysfunction, and I know Drew has his 4 dysfunctions of a bikini competitor. I'm wondering, do you have like a list of dysfunctions that you see in this,
I wrote them
in this
down.
area?
I wrote them down, but I don't have to refer to my notes. I kind of know them.
You can if you want to.
Either way.
On the plane over, I was like, what am I going to talk about? So the first one I want to say is what I touched on before, is that constant fight or flight mode that I see in a lot of competitors. The inability, they are so tense. And I think a big thing that LPF teaches us is how to, first of all, it's diaphragmatic breathing, which is different than belly breathing. So belly breathing, we're intentionally expanding the belly. Whereas with diaphragmatic breathing, we're focusing on more like rib cage expansion. Everything's connected, so your belly might move a little bit. That's why I said this is not posing, this is LPF, but very minimal belly movement. And that in itself just helps us calm down. But it takes athletes sometimes several sessions until they are able to
practice in between.
Yes, and doing the work until they are able to vacuum and like not bring their traps up. Like they can't help it. They're just, everything's tense. Like all of these muscles come up and, it's so hard sometimes to just calm them down. And it's our lives in North America and our lives as bodybuilders and as moms that bodybuild, and everything's just high pace. And then that's also why sometimes it's hard to get people to just do the LPF work. Like set aside 10 to 10 minutes. That's it. It makes such a difference. 10 minutes. But it is so hard to get people to do that sometimes.
Right.
Because
we're trained to think we
do more.
Right.
Yeah. And not to say this is less, but like it's not intense.
Right. It's calming.
Yes, that's the problem. It's like asking, I know you like yoga for your athletes, and it's just like, do you have a bit of resistance with that?
Absolutely.
And athletes
even stretching in general. I mean, just like
Yes.
taking that time to just slow down.
How is this going to help me? It doesn't connect for us.
The athletes who have progressed the most, and I want to keep going back to your dysfunctions, but the athletes who have progressed the most, in my mind, are the ones who have done the little things consistently.
Yes.
So I think of Eureka as one of our athletes, and I think about her mobility work. Jordan is another one who's invested a lot of time in mobility work. Adair, I mean, I could go down the list of people, but mobility work is different than stretching. It's mobility. It's the mobility part of it. I mean, stretching does have a part of it, but it's really a focused set of maneuvers that help your body move more freely. And I think I remember seeing Eureka is the one that stands out because I remember seeing her yoga wheel pose when she started, and then her yoga wheel pose after consistent work on that, and the differences in the mobility that she was able to produce in her thoracic spine. 100%. And so LPF is another one of those things where it's just taking the time. And it's not a lot of time, but it does add up. And the consistency in this practice is really the thing that differentiates high performers from people who are wanting to be high performers. And so, Tom Brady would say consistency is the thing that separates champions from everybody else. And it's not just you can't just say consistency. Well, consistency in what? It's consistency in the workout. And on a day where, my body's not fully recovered, maybe putting that extra time into mobility work or LPF as a consistent practice. And on the days that you feel great and you go to the gym and you get a great workout, those are the days that you want to double down.
And the thing is, like, sometimes, we're guilty of it. And I am guilty of it too, where, you think like the workout's the most important.
Right.
And that high stress, muscle tearing time that we have in the gym, that's what's going to make us champions. And we all have to do better with the other stuff.
We could probably add that to a dysfunction. Actually, is the prioritization? Maybe I don't know if that's the right word to use about it.
I don't know if that would be one of the dysfunctions, but I think that's a dysfunction in general of for multiple things, whether
Yeah.
it be rest and recovery, whether it be body work,
well,
whether it
this
be
is
LPF,
is rest and recovery.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I love is, sometimes I'll be on a Zoom or FaceTime with an athlete, and we'll go through. So once they finish like the first session where they really have that vacuum down, our next sessions, I really put them through a routine, and depending on what they need and also what their body's like, we choose different poses that would work for them and trying different things. And we go through it. And more often than not, I have to tell you that when we finish the class, they'll sit back up and I'll chat with them a bit, and they're like, okay. And they like start getting like, are you okay? I really have to go to the bathroom. Like, I haven't gone to the bathroom in days. To go. And they'll text me after and they're like, holy shit. Like,
literally,
like literally,
yeah.
holy shit.
things got moving again.
Things got moving. And again, that's that PNS, that rest and digest. There are vessels that flow here, that lymphatic.
Dov, I was
flow
telling
and
somebody
everything.
this today. We had somebody in peak week, and they were asking, "What can I do?" I have an athlete who's not going to the bathroom, and I talked about just doing the massage of the up the
diaphragm
right
release.
side across, which is a variation of the diaphragmatic massage, but more for digestive system. And I said, you can actually use a Theragun to do that. I said, I know this works because I demonstrated it for an athlete, and right after I demonstrated using the massage gun, I said, excuse me,
Gently.
I have to go.
Right?
I have to go to the bathroom right now because
feel it.
and I do, and you're right about that, is gently. You don't want to press super hard.
Or
You can
what
use
we
it.
do in LPF too, and you can use this for that purpose, is I'll take, I don't know if you heard me, but 2 athletes that I'm meeting this week, I asked them to bring tennis balls or lacrosse
Yep.
balls. And I'll actually get them to put them here and just lay on them and put your whole body weight on them, put your hands out on the mat, get your head on the side, just lay and breathe.
Yeah.
And just take that time to think. Inhale, just tidal volume, just what you can inhale, and then slow exhale. Shorter inhale, double the exhale, and just sit, like do that. And this is the dysfunction. So many athletes. When is this done?
Yep.
And you'll never, you'll never get into it. You'll never get the benefits if you can't just give yourself that time. So
Chill.
Okay, so we have the first one, which is consistent fight or flight mode, so tense. What's
Yep.
the second dysfunction?
So the second dysfunction I see in teaching competitors how to vacuum is they are in this constant brace of their abs. So when you are contracting your six pack, your transverse can't control, like your rib cage can't open. We're in essentially a crunch. So it becomes so difficult for me to teach these girls how to vacuum. And this comes, like this constant brace is again what you were talking about, that disconnect, not knowing how to engage the right muscles. And I'm going to tie this into just poor posture throughout the day. Like these.
Is that a separate dysfunction, or is that?
Well, we can call this dysfunction posture.
Okay.
Okay, let's call this dysfunction posture. Poor posture throughout the day. Also sometimes poor posture when they're posing. And being on our cell phones like this all day. So what happens here? Here we've created this
Computer,
crunch.
cell phones, everything where we tend to kind of hunch.
Yes, we compress
hunch and
this,
crunch.
right? So, when I'm down here, where does my breath want to go? Well, like the point of least resistance. So
Out.
my stomach is just going to come out. Diaphragm isn't moving. Rib cage is stuck. So this just compounds, and you ask them to let go of their abs, lift their rib cage, and what do? They do a
Crunch it down.
crunch. They flex.
They do the opposite.
The opposite. Yeah. And I do think that goes into, again, posture, poor breathing mechanics, and everything like that. So that's something that's been difficult. And I only work with competitors because it is more challenging. Probably kids are the easiest to teach how to vacuum because they haven't developed these dysfunctions. And I would say bodybuilders are probably the most difficult sometimes. And sometimes not, because they have such great body awareness, but sometimes it's breaking habits like that. But one tip that I give competitors is I will say, put something on your wrist or something that'll like catch your attention. So, if you're a texter and you're always looking at your thumbs, like put a black, like a black dot nail polish or something, like a pink heart, where it's just like,
Every
you
time
don't
you
get
see it,
used to it because it's only on one thumb. So every time you see it, you're like, what the hell? And then it's like, oh, okay. I'm going to grow through the top of my head.
I love that idea.
I'm going to relax my traps. Where's my breath? It's here. I'm going to take an inhale, small inhale, only what I need right now. But then I'm going to really think of that exhale and just think, you're at your desk, just think of that and do a few breaths. And before you know it, you're just this is going to be your posture. And you have to keep doing it. So if you're awake, how many hours are you awake of the day? Even if you only get, like, ideally, let's say for 6 of those hours, okay? Or even 3, let's say 3 of those hours, you are really focused on your posture. That is going to give you so much improvement because this muscle, like, it fires as a reflex. The internal core muscles. You can't think to yourself, I really want to contract my transverse heart. Like, it just doesn't work that way. It's a reflexive. Is that how you say the word?
Yeah.
Reflexive. Yeah, it's a reflexive muscle. So it fires by reflex. So you have to do something. And what we do is, like I said, in that inhale, exhale, as that rib cage moves, as the diaphragm moves, that muscle contributes to that action. So yes, that is posture.
Okay. Any other dysfunctions?
So I don't know if you want to call this a dysfunction, but we can talk about waist training.
You're the expert, so you call it whatever. And I will say this, so we're almost out of time.
Oh my God.
Okay.
Actually,
no, it is. Well, we are actually technically we are out of time. And I know we want to cover weight belts and waist trainers. And what I think we'll do is we'll cover that on our
fusion hack.
Good idea. Good idea.
So
but
we'll
that
cover
is
that.
one of the dysfunctions.
Yeah, because that's
so let's save that one.
Okay.
That could be my third, and that's, I don't have 4 like Drew.
Okay.
He's next level. He's the master.
Well, I think we were talking about this yesterday because, of course, he was there, and we were all working with a couple of different of our pro athletes, and one of the things I was talking about is that it didn't start out as 4. It's been really like it's like, and I'm sure this is the case for you as well. It's almost like we're a lab. We're our own, we're getting to see things and discover things the more athletes we get to work with.
Yes.
Yeah. And then we get more data points as to what's causing the dysfunction. And then we're getting more data points as to what works for different individuals to then start to pull them out of dysfunction into function. And that's a really exciting thing. So, I'm sure that we'll have you back on at some point. And as you continue to discover more, I did have a question for you before we do wrap up this one. And then, of course, like, hopefully everybody will watch the fusion hacks and get some great information there. I know you can't work with everybody.
I know.
And, if I could open the floodgates, you'd have about...
You'd be flooded.
Have about 1 million more people you're working with. For those that can't work directly with you, what would you say would be a good starting place for people that are wanting to learn more about LPF or start to practice? Like, how would they either, find information to work on their own or find somebody that could work with them if
for sure. Yeah. Listen, I don't gatekeep. I recommend my coach, Karina Anji, for anybody who doesn't know her. I can't think of her Instagram, but I think it's just her name. Karina.
How does she spell her name?
So it's Karina, the regular spelling, KarinaOnji, Anji. Yes. You'll find her. She works with
Awesome.
Rand Fogel and a lot of the top Olympian wellness girls. She is out in Brazil, and she's a great instructor. So, and I think she does this more full time. I've got so many different things, and I wish I could work with everybody. Honestly, it'd be so nice. And I'm trying to figure out a way where I can maybe do like a video or something to teach it. But to be honest with you, and Drew even said, can't we do like a big group class, which I would consider, but teaching people how to vacuum, it's
a personal
it's
thing.
So personal.
Yeah.
Yes. And I think, it's like coaching. You really want to get to know your athlete, and that's how you're going to get them to commit. You don't want them to feel like a number in a class.
Is there, if somebody either can't afford or can't get in with somebody, are there tools that you would recommend just if people are wanting to learn more? Or
if you want to learn how to vacuum, look up LPF, look up low pressure fitness. If you're watching YouTube or anything like that, don't just watch a random, especially, I don't want to say anything negative because some of like the top IFBB pros have put out vacuum videos. Again, you're watching somebody with incredible genetics, and sometimes they don't even know, like, sure, their vacuum's amazing, but they don't really even know what they're doing.
right.
So, oftentimes I'll ask somebody to say, well, you showed me a vacuum, but explain what you just did. And they're like, I think I did this. I think I did. Like, they don't have the steps. So you can watch them, but did you catch that they blew out all the air? Some people swallow some spit before they vacuum to close the glottis, to close that airway, make sure it's closed. I get the girls sometimes to plug their nose, things like that. So if they're not plugging their nose, do you know that there's no more air going through their nose? They've sealed that airway. You don't see those things on YouTube. So really look up, and I haven't done it myself, but there I'm sure are good videos, and look up low pressure fitness, because technique is everything in this style of vacuum. It's the true vacuum technique, and that's where I would start. But once my season is like over, I will try to get in as many people as I can, and I will definitely look at doing some instructional videos, or actually I was talking to Hannah about doing a video with her possibly while I'm here, where she'll demonstrate a vacuum and I'll just talk over
through it
for your
Well, you already did one of those, and we've actually added that.
She sent it to you.
Yeah, she sent it.
Oh,
yeah.
so
I've already actually put it in a number of people's programs.
Yeah,
So
I have to actually.
Yeah.
Well, and I mean, I think, over
I
time
could do better
we'll figure out ways to like create more tools and things like that. But I feel like for now, like I know people listening are going to want to be like, because we could talk about this for many more hours. Like,
oh
wow,
yeah,
where can I learn
look at all
more
these
here?
notes I made. I made like a note. I was on the plane. I was like, I want to talk about this and
I know,
this and
there's
this, and
just
it's like
so
it just
many
goes by
things.
so fast.
It does. So there's so many more things, and I think this is a real good introduction for those people that really don't know anything about it, or like you said, maybe they've seen other of the pros that are doing it, and they're like, wow, that how do I do that? Or maybe they're and I do think it is important that we don't create bad habits. So I do think it's important to ideally learn it correctly to start with, you know what I mean? So that then you're not having to unlearn.
And exactly, and do it. Like, this is what's going to make your waist small. Crunches, leg lifts, anything you're doing. Planks are okay because it's isometric, but anything you're doing to work your six pack is not going to bring in your waist. It will thicken it a bit. I'm not saying those are bad exercises. If you need more definition in your core on stage,
you may need to thicken the muscle, but we have to understand the difference. Like if we look at a CrossFitter, or if we look at like a power lift or something like that, where they're not concerned about the circumference or the small look of the waist,
the shape.
They're going to tend to be a little blockier there. Whereas specifically what we're talking about is somebody who wants to, whether they're a competitor or not, that wants to have like a little bit that more smaller
inches. Like some competitors have been doing it for a while. They're like, oh, I'm like down like an inch and a half, 2 inches,
which is huge.
And but that's what it is. It's working that TVA. This is not about building strength, guys. This is about managing the pressure. And if you learn how to manage the pressure, low pressure fitness. If you learn that throughout the day, if you learn how to manage the pressure, you don't have to go kill your core in the gym, because you're negating all the benefits of this. So again, there's a time and place for everything, but this is the key. So,
well, I do think maybe one of those that we could add this to a dysfunction is a lack of understanding of that. I know a lot of people want to do core work, and they think that if I do that more core work, I'm going to be bringing in my waist. I'm going to be able to control it on stage. I'm going to look better. And it's like, not so much. It does. Yes, we want a strong core. We do. We want a strong core because, and we'll talk about that in the Fusion Hack about weight belts and waist trainers in terms of being core killers. Right? I don't mean to steal the thunder on that.
Not weight belts, but we will talk about it.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. But I do think that core work really starts here. I think when we're talking about for the stage.
Well, this is the core.
Yes.
Right. The core is not just the abdominal muscles that you see on the outside.
Abdominal muscles, so I try to split it for people. When you're in the gym doing crunches, you're training your abs. When you're doing LPF, you're training your core. So, two different things.
Fair enough.
When you're doing those crunches, again, what are you doing in a crunch? You're contracting.
Well,
you're creating hypertrophy.
Then what we can do is then call this last dysfunction is use precise terms precisely,
please.
Which I got from my my infantry officer advanced course instructor, and I love that, and I've used that to this day. And so core work is differentiated from ab work.
Mm-hmm. Right. And if you're doing the ab work because you need that definition, fantastic. But be smart about it. That was another topic. Maybe we'll do that in the Fusion Hack, but be smart about what you're doing in the gym. And incorporate the LPF as well. And, you know, if you're working out hard, you're lifting those weights, you've got to be doing vacuums because you've got to manage that pressure.
Yeah.
Trust me, over time, I'm not 20 anymore. I've been through it all. I've had the pregnancies, the crazy pregnancy with triplets. You know, I've had the pelvic floor dysfunction. I've had the popped out abdomen. I've been on stage. I know what the demands are. The answer is stomach vacuuming. And I always say I'm a woman of science. I'm a dentist. I need to see studies. I don't buy into any like
woo-woo
woo-woo. Yes. And when somebody initially told me about this, like breath work, I was like, shut up. This is not going to help me, but
you can't argue.
Try anything once and
this is the thing, right?
When it works, it works.
There's the science and then there's the results. And at the end of the day, the science is part of the equation, but if you don't do the work, then the science is just stuff,
but
words on
LPF,
paper.
the stomach vacuums, there are scientific science.
100%.
And it's
That's the point,
physiological. It's not just it's not just
But
woo-woo,
the
it's
breath
actual.
work and relaxing through exhales. I was like, come on, like it's
your breath is so tight. You're so tied to your nervous system and
So, yes.
the muscle connection and everything.
Everything,
So
recovery.
it's all related. Yeah.
The mornings I wake up and have a good LPF session, just everything is great that day.
Yeah.
Everything. And on metabolism, you guys want a reason to do LPF? It does speed up your metabolism. I notice the days that I do it consistently, because I do, even me, I've got 5 kids, it's crazy. And some days, I do skip or I'll fall a little behind, just do a few. But the days that I do it well, in prep, I'll drop a little more. I truly believe it does.
That's a motivation in itself. I like
Well, now you got everybody wanting to do it. So let's tell everybody how to get a hold of you.
Yes. So you can send me a DM at drdove_IFBB Pro. And if you are with FitBody Fusion, I'm a FitBody Fusion athlete. So if your coach recommends LPF for you or you want to start it, you can have them reach out to me and they will connect us.
I would call you an affiliate. Because or a partner for us, because we do refer people to you, and that partnership is awesome, and I'm personally very grateful for that, because I've seen the benefit of it.
We appreciate you, and we
I'm
know
so flattered that the first time you sent me someone and it was an Olympian, and I was like, wow, it was like, she really trusts me. Like, this is serious.
and the results have been amazing. I'm
so
grateful.
I'm so happy. So yeah, it's very flattering, and I'm very grateful that you trust me.
Well, there's a lot of words there. Which one's going to be your checkout word?
Oh no, my checkout word is I was focused and now I'm energized.
Energized. Yes. I love it.
Ready to jump off the couch.
And we will do that right after we bid everybody adieu, which is to remind everybody to like. And if you're energized, then use that energy and like, comment, subscribe, and leave your comments in our section after this very informative and I'm just going to say this. This can make the difference. Everybody is looking for that edge. And the funny part of the edge is that the edge is nothing fancy. It's nothing, it's not the silver bullet or the special pill or anything. It's really the consistency of the effort. And that consistency over time, especially on these little things, which is not a little thing, a little thing over time, I think a lot of people have heard death by 1,000 cuts, but it's like, you're building a wall of needles. And if you're going to build a wall of needles, and every needle that you put on that wall is going to make a difference. So invest in those little things, because they will make a difference over time. And everybody remember the 3 B's.
Be good to yourself.
Be good to each other, and be safe. Take care.
Thank you for tuning in to FitBody Lifestyle. We hope today's episode has left you feeling motivated and equipped to tackle your fitness goals, business challenges, and the daily dance of life. Remember to value progress over perfection. Life's tough enough alone. Find the chosen family around you to help you along the way.
If you enjoyed today's episode, we'd really appreciate it if you would subscribe and leave us a review on your favorite streaming platform. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram at FitBody Fusion.